This video is sponsored by Surfshark, the best VPN on the market. Surfshark is an app or browser extension that allows you to change your location to access websites in other countries and keep you safe and secure from hackers. Using Surfshark, we here in Ireland can access other countries' Netflix libraries or other streaming platforms like DAZN in Spain for all those important Premier League games. Surfshark keeps you safe and private by protecting everything you do online. Everything. When your device connects to the internet, all that information is, in a way, blurred out. Surfshark is particularly useful for keeping you safe from being hacked if you use public Wi-Fi. Let's say you're in a cafe, you're at college, you're out and about, they've got you covered. Surfshark allows you to use one subscription on unlimited devices, meaning you can share your account with friends or family or that neighbour who's a little bit cheap. On top of all of this, Surfshark offers a 30-day money-back guarantee. You can also upgrade to Surfshark One, which includes the VPN, an alert system for breaches related to your data such as emails and credit cards, and an antivirus software for your desktop. Our sign-up offer gives you Surfshark VPN for a little over €2 a month. Simply scan the QR code on screen right now or use the link in the description. What is up, my friends? It is Monday and we are back to take a look over Liverpool's 2-2 draw with Fulham, look ahead to the game against Southampton and a few other bits and pieces. Delighted to say I'm once again joined by friend of the channel, Mr. David Lynch. David, how was your weekend, sir?
Yeah, good. Obviously, Liverpool didn't win, but I thought was impressed by the performance. I thought it was loads of positives to take. And then obviously Arsenal dropped points as well. And yeah, things are kind of going in Liverpool's favour, even when they're not some weekends. So yeah, not too bad at all, to be honest. And also, last night when watching Paul McCartney, and that was absolutely unbelievable, life-affirming stuff. So yeah, not a bad weekend all in all.
Yeah, I think you can take that as a win, David. I think you can take that as a win. That sounds like a good weekend to me. I tell you what, though, mate, it was an incredibly entertaining weekend of Premier League football, just regards to how it all went. I mean, I guess just love to chat a second or two with you on the Manchester Derby as an example, because I know you can't quantify this, but there is something in the air when it's not going for you. When, you know, you're doing the same things maybe you used to do before, but fate really is just playing a hand to Manchester City at the minute where they just cannot get anything. They can't get a break. They're making mistakes they didn't used to. And that game was, I think, an encapsulation of everything that they've been going through recently.
Yeah, I mean, I've still been getting tweets as recently as kind of Friday saying, you can't write Manchester City off. They're still in this title race, that they'll be there if Liverpool slip up. I think surely people have realised now that this team is in, that this Manchester City team can't put a run of wins together. It isn't going to. It's just not good enough. And it's so reminiscent of that season for Liverpool where it all fell apart. And there's nothing you can do about legs, and they are going to lose more games. They're going to drop more points because they just don't have the energy in the legs in the parts of the teams where they need it, and that gives you the platform then to do all the things that they do well, and they just don't have that at the moment. So yeah, it was you never really kind of cheering on a Manchester United win, but it was quite funny to see City get beaten again, and I just think it's actually kind of reassuring, I think, from a perspective of kind of overall football, that you can have as much wealth as they have, the best manager in the world, but a couple of bad decisions around transfers and maybe pushing a couple of players a season too far, and it can all fall apart and you can lose games. So it's reassuring, I think, from that perspective.
Well, I guess if we bring it back to the Fulham game and our own situation, I think we should have known from the first 60 seconds of that game it wasn't going to be a straightforward afternoon. I want to get your thoughts firstly on that tackle on Andy Robertson, the very first one inside the first minute, which to me was the most red cardy of all of the possible red card incidents from a Fulham perspective.
Yeah, and I'm kind of surprised Liverpool didn't make more of it, in that obviously Robertson does go down and he needs a lot of treatment, and it really clearly hurts him because he was limping for ages, basically limping until he goes off. And I think Liverpool maybe should have made more of it to the referee, really, because you watch it back and it is, it's not just kind of seeing them given it. It probably is a red card, really. It's, studs up challenge on the knee, completely misses the ball. So, yeah, really unfortunate. And the game obviously plays out completely differently if that red gets given in that moment, and Liverpool probably win it. So really frustrating to see that one. And I thought, one of kind of many poor decisions, which I think we'll probably get into.
Well, from that point on, it just was not Andy Robertson's day. I think it's fair to say he's been, unfortunately for him, who has been an incredible servant, is a very likable man, and we all want to do well. He has kind of been at the scene of the crime a little bit in recent weeks, whether it's a couple of penalties or, maybe not recovering from that knee injury. He had a couple of displaced passes, a bit of positioning maybe for his goal, and then of course the red card incident. Yeah, just one of those 20-minute periods where he'll never ever want to talk about that again, I'm sure.
Yeah, but it's kind of one of those as well. I feel for him in that he's not playing very well this season. I think he's struggled in quite a few games really, and clearly we're seeing the back end of Andy Robertson. I think the important thing around him is that you need a rotational option there to keep him fresh, and obviously Liverpool don't have that at the moment. But for all that is true, and he is struggling this season, he's also incredibly unlucky as well because you mentioned the penalties there. One of those could have quite easily been outside the box, couldn't it? The red card that he gets here, we actually, on reflection, probably shouldn't have got. So he's, as well as playing poorly, he's actually being a bit unfortunate in some situations, and that's a pretty poor combination, really.
Well, you and I were talking beforehand, and I think we're both okay to say this, but we only realised after Gary Lineker brought it up, really, that we probably should have made a little bit more out of appealing that red card decision because, fair play to Gary. In his analysis, he spotted that the ball probably wasn't getting near Wilson, and he probably wasn't going to be through on goal, and therefore their metrics for a red card were probably flawed.
Yeah, absolutely. That's it. I think no one in the ground kind of thought there'd be any issue with it. Why should there be? It just looked like a last man challenge, and he should go. So really, really strange one. That no one kind of pointed out that for the denial of a goal scoring opportunity, Wilson had to actually be able to get near the ball, and you look where he poked it; he wasn't going to get anywhere near it. So it's just weird that the VAR almost seemingly forgot to think about that element of it when checking it. But it quite clearly wasn't a red card, and I don't really think Liverpool will bother to appeal it because obviously it's the League Cup game that he misses. He just misses the one game, and you wouldn't have expected Robertson to be involved in that. But what it means on the day is just incredibly frustrating because again, if Liverpool kind of don't have that situation happening, that they end up with 11 men on the pitch, and I think they win that game comfortably because as you see how they played with 10 men. They were a much better side than Fulham. So, yeah, really, really frustrating. And again, as I say, you throw in the Diop decision, some later decisions as well. I just think not much went for Liverpool. And I don't think the referee was particularly fantastic, to be honest.
Well, there was a lot of good stuff that I'm going to move on to in a second. I don't want people to think we're just being negative here, but I was listening to your match reaction, your pod that you record after the games, and you still seem to think that you're not overly confident that Liverpool will look to a left back in the January market. We're seeing some links now, to be fair, put out there, mainly around KERKEZ, like Nuri and a few others. What gives you the feeling that we won't perhaps look to bring somebody in January? Is it because maybe Costas is coming back?
Yeah, exactly that, to be honest. I just think Liverpool will think, okay, it's something that we need to address and it's something we need to look at and something that will happen in the summer almost certainly. But when they've already got two left backs on the books, I just really, really struggle to see them bringing in a third. And I know Robertson's form has been really, really patchy, but I think for me, it's no coincidence that when he has a couple of games off and he comes back in against Aston Villa, I think that's his best game he's played so far this season. So if you can manage his minutes and use Costas as that kind of rotational option, I think you can still see the best version of Andy Robertson. But obviously at the moment it's very, very hard to because Liverpool have to play him in every game and you don't have that option to rotate him out. So that's made it really difficult. And so that for me is the reason I really do struggle to see that they would go for a left back in January. And I still do believe, like I say, he's struggling at the moment, but I do believe that this is a problem that Liverpool can kind of mask and we can see a better version of Andy Robertson this season. It's not like he's going to be throwing every game away and he shouldn't have even been sent off in that occasion. So, I struggle to see them adding the left back in January. I think if they do anything, I think it will be in midfield.
So, I guess for me, if I looked at it, I completely understand what you're saying about Robertson, and I'm not at a point of writing Andy Robertson off fully either, to be honest. But it's the Costas thing that kind of sticks out to me because even at his very best, I don't ever see a time where he's the natural successor to Andy Robertson. I
Yeah.
don't think we're going to get that from Costas. So I guess I'm just wondering, are we kind of hoping for the best again with regards to that situation where there is potentially a chance to improve on it? And yes, it may take a little bit of teasing to get somebody sold or moved out. But ultimately, I do think it's an opportunity for us to strengthen an area we're probably going to have to address anyway. And with the position where we find ourselves in the title race, I just wonder, why not take the plunge and try to force it in January?
Yeah, and I think it's a fair argument, by the way. I'm not saying that, I wouldn't be against them signing a left back personally. I would quite like to see them always try and see them, kind of strengthen the squad from the position they're in, absolutely. But it's just kind of knowing how they think about these things is that, we're thinking, okay, if they get a left back in, then everything's kind of perfect. But they won't, they'll know that all teams have flaws in moments. Everything's not always perfect all the time. And sometimes, you do have to kind of, okay, we can get through a season with these two left backs, then we can address it. I just think that that's kind of the mindset sometimes. And I think all clubs are like this, by the way. Chelsea's team isn't perfect, but they're going through this season with what it is. City's team definitely isn't. Arsenal's team definitely isn't. And then when you solve one issue, another issue pops up elsewhere. So, I just think they'll think they can definitely get enough out of these two left backs when they're both fit and available, and you can rotate them to win a Premier League and win a Champions League this season. And, I know at the moment it feels bad around Robertson and it feels like he's going to cost a lot of games this season, but I still firmly believe that that's possible. I think you can win the two top trophies with these as your left back options. And I think Slot thinks that as well. So that's why I think they'll be more minded to sort of wait towards the summer, have a look at the left back options, get a really good idea of who they want coming into there, and then we'll see movement on that front, and probably one of the two moving on, which I still think it would probably be more likely to be Costas.
So I guess we've covered the negative stuff around the game. Now let's get into the good stuff. I was incredibly impressed with how Arne strategically just kind of figured it out. Didn't panic too much. You could see him on the sidelines. The only time I seen any panic in him actually was when he was counting the seconds for their goalkeeper Leno when he had the ball. But other than that, you could see him and Sipka Hulshov just kind of figuring it out. And I thought he was incredibly impressive in that moment. I thought that the players, Ryan Gravenberch, Curtis Jones, Dominic Soboslai, they covered every single blade of grass out there. And even in the face of that adversity, they showed that they have the fight, the spirit in them, which I think we can take a lot of heart from, David.
Yeah, you're spot on about the manager in particular. I think, he tried something out, didn't he, with the kind of back three and Cody Gakpo as a left wing back for about 5 minutes, and then thought, this absolutely isn't working. And what he went back to was something that kind of just simplified things for the players a little bit. So Joe Gomez, we know he can play left back, and he just slots in there. Obviously, you've got Ryan Gravenberch playing in that unfamiliar centre-half role, but that was a bit of a stroke of genius to put him there because it allowed Liverpool to, he could step into midfield when necessary. He could make the extra numbers there, but obviously he's really, really good at the sort of nuts and bolts of defending. I thought he did a really, really good job in that. And what he also did was he was brave with what he did in kind of not having an extra midfielder and taking an attacker out. He just left the three attackers up front to just try and pin Fulham and just make sure that Liverpool did have some attacking momentum when they went forward. Obviously, that asked an awful lot of Curtis Jones and Szoboszlai, but I thought they both did a fantastic job covering a lot of ground, Szoboszlai in particular. So it was just a brilliant plan, brilliantly executed by the players. And it's just such a shame when you look at the numbers from the game. Liverpool deserved to win it, and it's just a shame that they didn't, because they put in such a great shift. They played so well and worked the socks off as well. It would have been nice for them to get that reward, but it's a point closer to winning the title. And on a day when Arsenal also drop points, you kind of take that, particularly with the situation you're in when you get a man sent off after 17 minutes.
So the two goals, let's talk about them really briefly before we finish up on the game. Mohamed Salah puts up 100 assists now in all competitions for Liverpool, which is, again, just another ridiculous stat to add. His ball in for Cody Gakpo, I thought, was absolutely fantastic. And again, a great header from Cody. But then we got a reminder of what we were missing when Diogo Jota gets, wasn't even a chance. It was a half chance or an opportunity, a beautiful little turn. And then how often is it? It's not very often. You see the keeper sent the wrong way from the edge of the box as well. He is just a fox in the box par excellence, David. He reminded us what we were missing there as soon as he came on. So both goals, top notch.
This is it. I mean, with the Gakpo goal, by the way, he's on 7 goals in 10 appearances now, which is, just shows that he's really coming into some excellent form, and it's coincided with Diaz's form dropping a little bit. That will happen. You'll have ups and downs in a season, so it's really important that Gakpo is finding that form, and his link up and that run with Salah starting to become a little bit of a feature, isn't it? A little bit of a telepathic thing that he always knows he's going to pick him out the back post. So that's really, really helpful for Liverpool. And on the other goal as well with Jota, like you say, he is a fox in the box. He's a brilliant finisher, but we kind of underrate and forget that he makes his own chances an awful lot of the time as well. With kind of his scruffy dribbling and finding a way through that opens teams up. It's just without question Liverpool's starting number 9, isn't he? So it's absolutely massive to get him back at this stage of the season. And Liverpool are on a little bit of a wobble, aren't they? 2 back-to-back draws, if you can call that a wobble or a blip. But to get a player of this quality back now, he's going to win an awful lot of games to Liverpool. And you just hope that nobody falls on him now in the next few months. And if Liverpool can keep him fit and keep him starting games, then they already are huge favourites for the league. But he's a big contributing factor to them probably going on and winning it, I think.
So this weekend, as you mentioned, we've seen people in and around us dropping points apart from Chelsea. They got themselves 3 points after a victory over Brentford. We've seen Arsenal once again dropping points at a draw, Manchester City getting beaten. Do you still think that Chelsea won't last the pace over the course of a season?
I'd say that the performance against Brentford didn't kind of answer any of my questions about their defensive solidity, which for me is the main issue that they're up against. You can have games like that where you give up chances and you still win, and that is kind of sign of champions. But it's the fact that Chelsea consistently give up chances. They give up high expected goals to the opponent. I just think that's going to catch them out quite a few times. And they're on a really good run of results-wise at the moment, and confidence is up. And I get the other factors that people talk about in that they're essentially only playing once a week because the European squad is totally different and they're not in the League Cup and whatnot. But I just think that defensive, struggles that they have is going to hurt them at some point. They're probably going to lose games through that, may go on a little run of bad form at some point. So, yeah, they're in the mix at the moment and they're doing really well. So you don't want to write them off completely. But I really do struggle to see them going all the way and really challenging Liverpool. I just don't think they're quite at that level.
Well, Opta have us, I think, in around 82%, something like that, likely to win the league. But that's only the start, David, of the new groundbreaking stats that we're about to bring up and show everybody. So Arsenal fans have invented a new metric, ladies and gentlemen, that we find rather amusing. Let me just bring up on screen for you for a second the deserve to win-o-meter, which is apparently something that Arsenal fans think needs to be brought to the world's attention to just make themselves feel better, David, I believe it is, after they drop points, because they can have as many points on their deserve to win meter as they want. Ultimately, if the scoreline shows a draw, it's going to be irrelevant. And this, to me, is just peak fan nonsense. If I'm being honest with you, mate, I just find the whole thing laughable.
I mean, the thing I would say about Arsenal is, you can keep saying that. Keep seeing. I don't know why I see this so much on social media. I don't follow a lot of Arsenal fans, but I seem to see a lot of it. Is so much talk about the fact that they are the main threat to Liverpool. They're going to go on this huge winning run, and the most recent winning run has now started with back-to-back draws against Fulham and Everton. So they have to start winning at some point if they're to challenge Liverpool. You start getting to the point where we're not saying you're running out of games yet, but obviously it's getting closer to the end of the season every time you drop points, and they've dropped points now in half of the games so far this season, and yet are talking about going on a 15-game winning run to win the Premier League. And don't get me wrong, I don't question their quality. We've seen over the last couple of seasons just how good they are, but they need to start winning games at some point, improving that before they start talking about the title, because there's that 6-point gap to Liverpool now, with a game in hand as well, and they're just a long way back, and they don't look like scoring a lot of goals this season, which is a big problem for them. So they've got a lot of work to do really to sort things out, and for Liverpool, they're not really a consideration at the moment. Their form is so poor that Liverpool can continue to drop points and seemingly keep that gap open. So if Liverpool put the foot down again now at any point and maybe reel off 5 or 6 wins in a row, then you've got every confidence that gap to Arsenal will get even bigger, because they've got problems at the moment.
So here's what I think about the whole Arsenal situation. I wonder, 5 years or so with Arteta, 1 trophy in FA Cup, I think about £600-700 million spent. I don't think that will cut it at any other top club. I think if that was Jurgen at Liverpool, we'd be asking some serious questions. If we were talking about Arne Slot as well in 5 years' time and we were looking at 1 FA Cup, I think, we would be asking, where are the trophies for that investment?
Yeah, I think we've got to be fair in that we kind of, we've got to say, obviously, they've been close a couple of times in the Premier League, haven't they? And missed out to Pep Guardiola's Man City. And we all know what that feels like, and that can happen. You can be a really good side and not get your rewards for it. But one thing I will say about, I'd be concerned if I was an Arsenal supporter is my big question mark over Mikel Arteta has always been his ability to coach and attack, to score goals consistently. And he kind of answered a lot of those questions in the 22-23 season when they were absolutely brilliant going forward. But I thought we saw, even last season when they were in title contention, we saw a drop in that attack level, and that was masked by the set pieces and the ability to get goals from those. Now what's happening is the set pieces have disappeared as well now, and the actually sides are starting to come up with ways to defend those. And so you take out the set pieces, the attacking numbers just aren't there and aren't at the level they need to be. And that 22-23 season now looks like a bit of an anomaly. And so I do have questions over whether Arteta can consistently coach an attack that is Premier League title winning in ability. And I'm not seeing signs at the moment. So that, as you say, that's a worry for him, I think, in terms of what it means for his job going forward. And he has brought them from the doldrums. They were in a poor situation when he inherited them. They are much better. But you'd start to have a few question marks over whether he's kind of the man to take them over the line. And on the performances we've seen this season, they look like they're missing a huge opportunity with City being down as well. It's not looking great for him, as you say.
This week for us looks like another big week in our season. Obviously, Southampton on Wednesday, you would expect a lot of rotation there. But the game now against Spurs next Sunday does take on, I guess, a big must-win headline, because we've come off 2 draws in the Premier League, a wobble if we want to call it that. But you don't know what Spurs to expect next Sunday, which is one kind of worrying aspect of it. But this could be a potentially season-defining week, or getting towards it. If you're in a semi-final of a cup after Wednesday, and if you can get 3 points in London at the weekend, things are looking rosy.
Yeah, I think Slot maybe won't put as much importance on that Southampton game. I think we're going to see with the team selection where that stands in the priorities. To be honest, I expect an awful lot of changes. I think it's going to be a combination of fringe players who need the minutes, but also quite a lot of youngsters are going to be involved in this one. Really.
Perhaps?
Yeah, I think he might struggle because the midfield, I actually think, will probably look something like Endo, McAllister, and maybe Harvey Elliott. So Nioni may struggle to kind of come in from the start, but the likes of Norris at left back, maybe Nallo in central defence, I think they've got very, very good shouts for starts. So I don't think that's that high on the priority list. And maybe Liverpool, things can happen. Maybe they'll lose that game. I don't think Slot will be too concerned. But as you say, I think Tottenham is massive now, because there've been mitigating circumstances for Liverpool in this back-to-back draws. The injuries and having to start Quanta at right back at Newcastle. The fatigue that they had after Real Madrid, Man City, that being a busy period, and then obviously the red card against Fulham. But at some point, you can't keep focusing on the mitigating circumstances, and you have to go out there and put wins on the board. And Tottenham could be a really tough one, but it's also Liverpool are a better team than Tottenham, and so they'll want to go there and get a win, get back to winning ways, and start another winning run as well, just to kind of get themselves back on track. So I do agree that is a kind of feels like a massive game now, and one where you want to see Liverpool go there and get the 3 points.
Before we finish up, just a couple of things. I want to talk about Trent for a second, if I can, because I know Trent says that he wants conversations to be kept private and he wants it all to be played out respectfully behind the scenes. And I absolutely understand where he's coming from on that. But there's also an aspect of that being a cop-out, in that if he does decide that he's thinking of leaving, it buying him more and more time, and the season end is approaching. And you've started to see, at least in my chat and in what I've seen online, a frustration start to build towards Trent. And my fear is that I don't want any toxicity towards Trent whatsoever. But I do think transparency is the way forward in these situations. And I get that he doesn't want to talk about it, but like I've said to you before, dropping an old "this is where I want to be" into the chat wouldn't go astray. And as you said beforehand when we were speaking, and I absolutely agree, we're almost preparing ourselves for the worst now with Trent by nitpicking anything and overemphasizing it. So he did jog around a little bit at the weekend and wasn't tracking back as much. That probably becomes a bigger thing now to fans in this situation than maybe it would have been in previous weeks. Do you have any indication of how that decision is looking for Trent with regards to not even the contract situation, but I want to be here, because we've seen a report today that he's rejected 3 contract offers from Liverpool. Now, I don't know whether that's true. I believe it's coming from Marcus, so big pinch of salt required. But I just still want to hear those words. I want to be here. That's all I'm waiting for.
The thing is that I would say about this is that I think he's indicating that he does want to stay at Liverpool by the fact that talks are ongoing. If he decided he wanted to go to Real Madrid, they wouldn't even be talking now. It'd be a kind of done deal, and that would be over, and we would know about it. So I think he's indicating that he wants to stay in that regard. And I also think we've got to factor in that, for me, and this sounds, we don't want to kind of talk about club legends in this way or local lads, but I think he would be stupid to come out and say that he wants to stay, because that Madrid interest is such good leverage in contract negotiations, and I think he would be foolish to abandon it. And also, you've got to factor in that if it doesn't work out with Liverpool and he doesn't feel that he gets a contract that recognises how good he is, that then he could actually go there as well. That is an option for him, but I think he is giving priority to Liverpool. That's certainly the way I understand it at the moment. But I think it would be daft from him to come out and rule out going to Real Madrid, because you can use that in contract negotiations. His job and his agent's job is to get the best possible deal for him. And saying that I don't want to go anywhere and have no interest in going to Real Madrid is one way of kind of ensuring that Liverpool say, well, we can give you this, and it's not as much as you actually could get, but we can get away with giving you this because you want to stay.
I think I'm going to be really honest about it. I don't think he's worth £300,000 a week or anything close to it. I don't think any right back in the world, not just Trent, he is an exceptional player. But I keep coming back to, David, in my own mind, what Mohamed Salah had to do to get the wage structure broken from. He almost had to rewrite the history books. And I guess Trent, being a local boy, does carry a bit of extra weight, homegrown through the academy. But I just don't see that the club are going to get the value of 300, if that is the number, if it's somewhere approaching that. I just don't see there's good value in that.
I think that's a fair point. Do you get enough from him? Previously we'd have said definitely yes, but in this slot system where it doesn't seem to be as reliant on him to progress the ball as we've seen in previous versions of this team under Jurgen Klopp, will you get enough out of him just using him as a traditional right back, which is a lot of what Liverpool are kind of asking of him at the moment. I think that's a fair point, and that's one that Liverpool have got to make the decision on, really. And it's a really, really tough one, whether the value is there. Obviously, if they let him walk away for free on the basis that they don't think the value's there, I'm not sure people will take it that well. But you're right. I think you're right to raise that point. That is it's not as clear cut as maybe you'd have thought. Even 6 months ago. To be honest, it's a tough decision. But I still, like I say, talks are still ongoing. So clearly, they think there's an ability to get some value there. Whether the numbers quite add up to that, we'll see. But it's ongoing at the moment. So. Not too much panic about the Real Madrid thing. As I say, I think it's worth him keeping that live as leverage, and to use that kind of against Liverpool. And we'll see who kind of blinks first and whether he can get this done. But I'm still optimistic that he will, and I'm sure there are better performances to come from Trent as well than we saw at the weekend. Because I agree, I didn't think he had his best game, and maybe he's not been absolutely fantastic since he's come back from his injury. So I want to see a little bit more from him if possible.
Just want to underline as well that I absolutely do want him to stay, and I think every Liverpool fan does. We're just maybe preparing ourselves for the worst psychologically, but we definitely do want Trent to be here. Samuel Ricci of Torino was a name that's come up a little bit, and I also wanted to just ask you what you think the plan might be now for Stefan BAJCETIC with Pep Linders losing his job at Salzburg.
Yeah, so Ricci, I've not heard anything personally on that one. It's an interesting one. I guess profile-wise kind of makes a lot of sense, but I can't say I know an awful lot about the player, so and not heard anything from kind of sources on him being someone that they pursue. It's possibly just one of those links that pops up. And in terms of BAJCETIC, an interesting one, really. I guess they'll have to kind of wait and see who the new manager is, whether he fits into his plans and he can get minutes there, because that's the important thing. They want BAJCETIC to play games this season to get his fitness back up and get that sharpness back after that lengthy layoff. So that's the important thing, really. So they'll just be kind of keeping an eye on that, see who the new manager is. And if he says, okay, you're not going to be in my plans, then I'm sure there'll be a recall and maybe a loan elsewhere in January.
And really quickly, KERKEZ name has been mentioned as well. Do you think that whenever it is Liverpool maybe look to the left-sided market, do you think he's a realistic name?
Yeah, possibly because obviously Richard Hughes liked him, didn't he? And he was the one who signed him for Bournemouth. So, and I believe Arne Slot is quite a bit of a fan of the player as well. He's got real potential. I think he's doing well in the Premier League already. Decent on the defensive side. Attacking numbers could be a bit better, but I think in a better team, maybe we would see that. There's just a lot to like about him. I suppose the big question is whether Liverpool would pay 40 million for a left back when they probably think they could get cheaper elsewhere who's good enough, particularly in that position. But if they think he's absolutely perfect, then I'm sure they'll do it because the money's definitely there to do it. So yeah, he's an interesting one. He's one that I would think would definitely be on the radar. But obviously, I still lean towards not thinking that would happen in January, but maybe in the summer.
Well, it's not happening until he gets rid of that mullet. I can say that. He's not coming to Liverpool with that mullet, David. I'm not allowing it. This is not happening. Sorry. I might be old fashioned, but the only people allowed mullets are Australian cricketers and rugby players. That's it.
Yeah,
That
that's
maybe a
fair.
couple of ice hockey players, David. We could give them a pass, but yeah, that's it. That's where my list ends. So, look, David, it's been a pleasure as always. What have you got coming up this week to
Yeah.
keep people entertained during that busy week?
Yeah, so I've got on Substack a little look at Gakpo's numbers and kind of how Slot's got the best out of him at the moment. I've got something coming up probably today as well on kind of who we can expect in terms of the youngsters who are going to be in the side at Southampton. So if people want to check that out, it's davidlynchlfc.co.uk.
And again, thank you to everybody for watching and listening. We'll catch up with you guys after the game against Southampton. And thank you to David, of course, for joining us. We'll talk soon. Bye-bye.